Suge Knight believes that he wouldn't be in jail for 28 years if he had David Kenner representing him. I respectfully disagree with that as to what history has shown us. Tory Lanez now believes the same thing as he's hired David Kenner. Oh, let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tell a friend. And like I always say, if this is your first time tuning in to Straight Game TV and you would like to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Suge Knight just recently did an interview from prison, and in where Vibe magazine posted some of the excerpts from that interview, phone conversation interview, in their online news magazine, if you will. And I found it very interesting, to say the least. Most people have focused on the fact whether Suge Knight was actually shot in Vegas, and whether he has bullet fragments still lodged in his head, in regards to him comparing, or basically saying he identified with the situation involving Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. As to that, I don't doubt Suge not one bit in regards to that, because there is also video evidence of Suge being at the hospital shortly afterwards, Tupac and him being shot in Las Vegas, and there is a laceration or what appears to be some kind of bruise on the right side of his head. And so with that information, factual information, video information, I tend to believe Suge Knight. I'm not the doctor that was there. Like I said, I tend to believe him based on what I saw in the video and based on what he's saying. And so for that reason, I'm okay with that statement. But there was another statement that he made, right, in regards to that situation, and where he thought that people, he said people said that he was lying and so on and so forth in regards to that, as as people were basically saying Megan Thee Stallion was lying about being shot and so on and so forth. And like I said, the only people who know in regards to the Megan Thee Stallion situation, as there were x-rays released also, is Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez. I find it odd that Tory Lanez is a Canadian citizen and would involve himself in such a careless or reckless event, if it is true. But from a jury of 12 people, they basically convicted him, right or wrong. The key factor is you put yourself in a situation like that, right? And you're not even a United States citizen. You in America, toting guns, this gangster thing, this image, all of these things, you know what I mean? The picture, the Tupac 90, Tupac said, 50 guns, Tory Lanez has the thing, the same AK-47 picture, which says, 90, from that perspective. And so once again, you won't get a fair shake, when you present, or should I say present yourself in that manner, and people choose to use your image and your music, but mainly your image against you. It works basically not in your favor. So from that perspective, that's what that is. I find that very crazy about the Megan Thee Stallion, Tory Lanez situation. But the thing that I really found issue with was the representation issue, and basically Suge Knight saying this and comparing it, or should I say the interviewer comparing it to the Tory Lanez situation in regards to legal representation. And so Suge Knight basically said, if they'd have let me use David Kenner, I wouldn't be having this conversation from prison with you. Basically, David Kenner had stepped down from the father of five's case for personal reasons and was denied the ability to return and handle Suge Knight's case. Suge believed, much like Tory Lanez believed, that perhaps better representation or legal advice could have led his case to going differently. I respectfully disagree. And let me tell you why. First and foremost, before you even get to a courtroom, you have the ability as a grown man to exercise restraint. Tory Lanez, as well as Suge Knight, being two situated, both at the pinnacle and at the top of their career, right? Chose to take an action, right? And there are consequences behind the action. I felt like, before whatever Suge was going over to the movie set, or the Straight Outta Compton movie set, whatever, if it was something legal, he felt like his image likeness, he wasn't being paid for them using his name, whatever. I felt like he could have dealt with that from a legal standpoint and filing a lawsuit. He might have, found himself on the winning end if he did that, or some kind of settlement at best, right? Tory Lanez, same situation. Why is it that you surround yourself around people who feel like they need to carry guns, and you supposed to be at this particular point at the height of your career, as Suge was at one time from that perspective, not in reference to the situation in Compton at the burger spot, but I'm going to give you the correlation of that a little bit later in this video. So the Tory Lanez situation, right now you appear to be at the top of your game, and you keep hanging around or wanting to affiliate yourself with this image of pistols, guns. He has the tattoo of the AK-47 with 90 guns like Tupac did, and Tupac had 50 guns, or 50 niggas, if you will, from that perspective, right? And so he's basically trying to portray the same image, not understanding that even for Tupac, and Tupac saying in the situation in New York that the case, his image did not work for him in the case. If you're involved in any kind of legal situation and it involves guns, violence, or whatever have you, you got to know as Tory Lanez that your image that you portray will be used against you. Absolutely. Whether it's relevant or not. Or people will look up, the jurors can look up who you are, Tory Lanez. Here it is. You got two middle fingers up, all of these tattoos. And it's like, they're going to label you as a thug, right? So you're supposed to be conscious of that. Not to mention the fact that you're a Canadian citizen over here involved in all of this craziness, right? So, but the Suge Knight situation involving David Kenner, right? Once again, where you find that the most interesting, or where you should find that the most interesting, because as I do, is the fact that him saying that if he had David Kenner representing him in the Tamsburger, when he ran over, may he rest in peace, the brother Terry Carter, is the fact that in Las Vegas, right? The same situation here at that time, Suge at the top of his game, right? Chose to involve himself in a situation where he did not have to involve himself already, or should have known that he was on probation. Right? Once again, these same old decisions being made and not being thought through before you commit this action. And then want to look hindsight and say, well, I didn't really kick him, or well, it didn't really happen, and it's actually on video. And so now, when you take that in consideration and saying what he said about the Tamsburger situation in regards to whether if David Kenner would have been representing me, well, David Kenner was representing Suge Knight in the violation of probation case involving a situation which led to them being shot, right? And Suge ended up being violated and receiving 9 years in prison. So that's the reason why I say that I respectfully disagree with Suge's his analysis of the situation in what I usually call Monday morning quarterbacking, of course. And the same thing for Tory Lanez. He's basically saying now, if I had better representation, well, there is a Supreme Court case involving if you felt like you were not fairly represented by your attorney, you have a certain amount of time to basically present that to the court. On my last album that I put out, it's called Master Mason in Hip Hop Grammar. I have 12 Supreme Court cases along with the music, right? The album is fabulous. I think a lot of us, y'all should be listening to this album to basically put yourself up on the law and what to do and what not to do as African-American males, white males, Latino males, because a lot of us, we constantly bend the law, or better yet, should I say break the law when it only should be bent. You can bend it, but don't break it, especially if you don't know it. So the same situation in dealing with Suge Knight. He had a conscious decision to make in both cases and chose to make the wrong decision. So the David Kenner argument, however entertaining, is not relevant at this particular point in regards to what he chose to do, as we saw with the Vegas situation, right? First, in which Suge Knight could have learned from and say, you know what? I need to make better choices next time, as well as me losing my my superstar rapper, my friend, whatever he considered Tupac, and all of those things. Like I said, David Kenner represented him in the violation of probation case, as well as having Orlando Anderson actually come and testify. And the judge still didn't believe it based on what he saw in the video. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, that's the problem that I had with the argument. Though I respect Suge. Like I said, I wish him the best. But sometimes you got to sit down and say, you know what? I was wrong. You know what I mean? And accept accountability for your actions so that you can become a better individual and not make the same mistakes twice or three times as Suge has done, involving different situations involving violence. There you have it. So, like I said, my analysis and me breaking this down is just based on the facts and what we've seen from the past and the history of Suge Knight. And hopefully the brother Tory Lanez can learn from this situation and become a better individual. I hope that they don't give him 22 years. You know what I mean? I hope that, this can scare him enough to say, you know what? And he probably can write the judge or something like that and try to ask for some kind of leniency and, apologize to Megan Thee Stallion. Like I said, I understand what people think about what they feel about him not being given a fair trial or whatever. But there's, legal statutes in which he can use to basically file with the court and try to make that argument. Whether the court is going to accept that argument is a whole nother thing. But why give the court the ability to make a decision on your life when you as an individual can stop that from happening to begin with by making the conscious decision of not involving yourself in anything like that, especially when you're at the top of your game and having money, success, and all of these things. That's the furthest thing you should be away from is any kind of garbage involving pistols and guns, or unless it comes to you defending yourself and defending your family, then, then that's justifiable. But other than that, I don't want nothing to do with that, But always stay on point and be ready and make sure, once again, you would be a legal gun owner, right? In which I don't think Tory Lanez can own a gun in the United States because he's not a citizen. So, like I said, as to the Suge Knight situation, I understand the parallels between, with people not believing him as well as they didn't believe Megan Thee Stallion about being shot and so on and so forth. But, they had the x-rays to show Megan Thee Stallion. And like I said, the video evidence to show Suge. So I believe in that situation in particular that, yeah, it did happen. But as to who is the guilty part in Tory Lanez, 12 members, or should I say 12 peers, found him guilty based on the evidence that was presented. Your boy DELRAY, straight game.